In the quiet village of Udine, there were once sisters in friendship until jealousy planted a seed that grew into destruction. One rumor shattered a life, but the truth did not stay buried. When the ancestors appeared, justice struck like thunder. Listen closely. This story will remind you why words matter. Welcome to African Tales by Call, where African stories come to life. Subscribe and join our storytelling family. The sun behaved like a careful artist over the quiet village of Udine, painting the sky with orange strokes that kissed the clay walls and glowed against the thatched rooftops. In this peaceful place lived two young girls whose laughter used to echo all through the narrow paths, Zira and Lami. Anyone in Udine could swear their friendship was stronger than the strongest palm wine. They drew water together at the riverbank, shared roasted plantain under the mango trees, and whispered dreams that stretched far beyond the village borders. Zira moved through life softly, with a calm spirit that made people trust her. She worked beside her father, weaving patterns into his fishing nets with such patience that the entire village praised her skill. "Your hands are blessed, Zira," the elders would say. Whenever her father cast those nets into the river, they returned heavy with fish, shining like silver coins. Lami, however, carried a quiet storm inside her chest. She was bright and full of laughter, yes, but jealousy grew inside her like a weed that refused to die. Each time she heard the villagers praise Zira, something bitter twisted in her stomach. She pretended not to care, but she did deeply. One warm morning, the village drum echoed across Udine, calling everyone to the square. The harvest festival was near, and excitement danced on every face. The chief elder stood tall and announced, "This year, the youth representative will be Zira, for her devotion and the blessing she has brought to our waters." The crowd clapped, joyful and loud. Lami clapped too, but her smile trembled like a cloth in the wind. Inside her heart, an angry voice whispered, "Why not you? She gets everything." That night, jealousy sat awake beside her like an unwanted guest, refusing to let her sleep. Zira was given a great honor. She was entrusted with decorating the ancestral shrine, where the festival blessings would be made. When she returned home, she hugged her mother tightly. "Mama, I will make you proud," she whispered. At the household hearth, her mother smiled. "My daughter, humility is a crown that never falls. Do your work with a clean heart, and the ancestors will smile upon you." While Zira prepared string and cloth for the shrine decorations, Lami walked from home to home, speaking softly to anyone who cared to listen. She approached the women roasting groundnuts near the fire pit. With lowered eyes and a quiet voice, she said, "Have you ever wondered how Zira's nets catch so many fish?" The women paused. One asked, "What do you mean, child?" Lami sighed heavily, as though burdened by sadness. "I heard something. I do not want trouble, but they say Zira stole charms from the old healer, Baba Amara, and that is why the nets are full." Gasps rose like sudden wind. "That cannot be true," one woman cried. Lami shook her head slowly. "I also wish it was not true, but Baba Amara's harvests have failed since Zira began weaving. Maybe the gods are angry." The rumor jumped from mouth to mouth like fire catching dry grass. By the next sunrise, Zira felt the air around her change. People who once greeted her warmly now stepped aside. The boys who used to admire her beauty now stared at the ground instead. At the market, she sat alone beside her basket of peppers. She greeted a group of women cheerfully, but they only murmured and walked away. Confused, she touched her chest. What did I do wrong? She wondered. When she returned home, tears streamed down her face. She fell into her mother's lap. "Mama, tell me why everyone hates me." Her mother stroked her hair gently. "My child, truth is slow, but it always arrives. Do not let their voices break you." Zira's father returned from the river, angry and breathless. "The elders say our family may not attend the harvest festival," he announced. "They are calling for a council meeting under the great ube tree." A heavy silence filled the room. Zira trembled. "They think I am a thief, a witch." Her father held her hands. "You will speak your truth, and the truth will defend itself." On the day of the council, villagers filled the square. Lami stood among them, shoulders raised, wearing a cloth tied proudly around her waist, woven with a pattern almost identical to Zira's fishing nets. Before the elders could begin, Grandmother Irina, the oldest woman of Udine, stepped forward. Her walking stick dug into the dusty ground as she spoke. Before we listen to sharp tongues, let us listen to wisdom. She pointed directly at Lami. Child, you say someone used charms. I remember when Zira began weaving her nets. She worked from dawn till moonrise for 3 moons without rest. Hard work is the only charm her family owns. The crowd murmured in confusion. Grandmother Arena's eyes narrowed. But I also remember something else. Lami came to me 1 moon ago, asking how to grind bitter cola leaves into a dye so strong it would stain cloth forever. She asked how to make it stick. Slowly, she lifted her hand and pointed to the cloth tied around Lami's waist. That is the dye. That is the pattern. You tried to copy Zira's blessing. When it failed, you painted her honor with poison. A sharp wind swept across the village square, as if the ancestors themselves had exhaled. The leaves of the great ube tree rattled like warning drums. Every villager felt the air shift, heavy, full, and watching. Zira stood trembling, her palms sweating, her voice locked somewhere deep inside her throat. She wanted to speak, to defend herself, but fear tied her tongue like a tight knot. She looked around and saw eyes filled with judgment. People she once played with when they were children, people she trusted to know her heart. She whispered to her father, Baba, I am afraid. Her father squeezed her hand gently. Courage is not the absence of fear, Zira. Courage is speaking even when your voice shakes. His words steadied her, but before she could step forward, Grandmother Arena raised her hand again, and the entire square fell silent. It was the kind of silence where even a grain of sand falling could be heard. The old woman's eyes glowed strangely in the sunlight, deep, bright, and almost unearthly. The earth knows the footsteps of those who walk with truth, she said slowly. And the spirits of our ancestors do not sleep when justice is broken. Several villagers exchanged uneasy glances, and a child somewhere in the crowd began to cry without knowing why. Grandmother Arena lifted her walking staff and struck the ground 3 times. The sound echoed loudly, as though the earth itself answered. Suddenly, a cold breeze moved through the crowd, making the flaming festival torches flicker wildly. Zira felt a chill race down her spine, and even Lami, who had stood confidently with her chin lifted high, swallowed hard and stepped back. Let the truth come forward, Grandmother Arena commanded. Let no shadow hide behind lies. The sky darkened slightly, though no cloud was seen, and the air vibrated with a strange humming sound, a rhythm like distant drums coming closer. Villagers clutched each other tightly. A woman whispered, "The ancestors are here," while an elder muttered, "We must not breathe falsehood in their presence." Suddenly, a soft golden light began to shimmer around the great ube tree, forming a haze that looked like smoke yet moved like water. Slowly, the light shaped itself into a tall figure wrapped in glowing white cloth, face hidden beneath a hood of light. Children screamed and hid behind their mothers. Men dropped to their knees. Even the council of elders bowed their heads, trembling. Zira, frozen in awe, felt her heartbeat thundering inside her chest. Her mother gripped her father's arm. "The ancestor spirit," she whispered in a shaken voice. "The guardian of truth." The glowing figure stepped forward without touching the earth, floating just inches above the dust. When it spoke, the voice sounded like many voices layered together, deep like thunder, soft like rain, and ancient as stone. "Why have you called the council?" the spirit asked. Grandmother Arena bowed deeply. "Sacred One, there is a tear in the cloth of truth. A young heart has been wounded by falsehood." The spirit turned its head slowly, the golden glow reflecting in the wide eyes of every silent villager. "Who speaks lies in the land of Udine?" it demanded. Zira stepped forward weakly. "Holy One," she whispered, voice trembling. "I am accused of stealing charms and of using evil to bring fortune to my father's nets. I swear by the spirits of my ancestors, by the blood in my veins, I have done no such thing." Her voice broke, heavy with pain. Tears filled her eyes. "I have worked only with my hands and the strength the Creator gave me." The spirit's light brightened, swirling around her like a shield. Then it turned toward Lami, who shook visibly as though her bones were ice. "Child," the spirit thundered, "what have you done with the truth you were entrusted to carry?" Lami glanced around desperately, sweat rolling down her forehead. She opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. The spirit lifted its luminous hand, and suddenly, the air around Lami shimmered. A strange vision appeared in the sky like smoke-forming shapes. Every villager stared upward as scenes unfolded in the air. The night Lami had gone to Grandmother Arena's home, her whispered questions about dyes and patterns, her face twisted with frustration when her own nets failed, and finally the moment she spread the rumor to the women by the fire pit. Gasps sliced through the crowd. Mothers covered their mouths, ashamed they had believed the lies. The elders exchanged hard, disappointed stares. Zira felt her knees weaken beneath her. The truth was out without her having to speak a single word. Lami dropped to the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. "I did not mean for it to go this far," she cried. "I only wanted to be seen, to be praised, just once. Everyone loves Zira. No one ever sees me." Her voice cracked like broken clay. "I wanted her blessing. I thought if I copied her pattern, the river would bless me too, but nothing changed. I was angry. I spoke without thinking, and the rumor grew like a fire I could not control. I am sorry. Please forgive me." The villagers stared at her, but nobody moved. The spirit's voice rolled like thunder, shaking the ground beneath their feet. "Jealousy is a poison that first destroys the heart that carries it. Lies are spears thrown into innocent flesh. You have wounded the innocent and stained the name of one who did nothing to deserve it." Lami sobbed harder, collapsing fully onto the earth. "Please, Sacred One, please do not take my life," she begged. "I will do anything. I will confess. I will kneel at every door in this village and speak the truth with my own mouth." The spirit turned and looked at Zira. "Child of light," it said gently, "your heart has been crushed, yet you stand. Shall your spirit choose vengeance or forgiveness?" Every eye turned to Zira, waiting. The wind stopped completely. Not a sound moved in the entire village. Zira closed her eyes, tears sliding down her cheeks. She breathed slowly before speaking. "Holy One," she said softly, "I do not seek vengeance. I only wanted the truth to live. Let her confess, let her learn, and let peace return to Udine." The spirit's glow dimmed slightly, as if considering Zira's words with deep care. A hush lay over Udine like a heavy cloth. Then the spirit raised its hand again, and every villager felt something cold brush against their skin, like invisible fingers. "You have asked not for vengeance but for truth and peace," the spirit said to Zira. "Because of your mercy, the earth will not drink Lami's blood today. But justice must still be seen and felt, so that this wound does not open again in another heart." Slowly, the spirit turned back to Lami, who still knelt in the dust with her forehead pressed to the ground, her shoulders shaking. "Rise," the spirit commanded. Lami's body trembled as she pushed herself up, unable to lift her eyes. "Look at me," the spirit said. Slowly, she raised her head, her face wet with tears, her lips quivering. The light around the spirit brightened, and its voice dropped to a deeper, echoing tone. "From this day, your body will carry a mark of your actions, so that each time you consider using your tongue to harm another, you will remember the pain you caused." A beam of golden-white light shot from the spirit's hand and touched the center of Lami's forehead. She screamed as if a hot coal had been pressed against her skin, stumbling backward and grabbing her head. The villagers gasped, some turning away, others staring in frozen horror. When the light faded, a small, dark symbol remained on her skin, a curved mark like a twisted rope, right above the space between her eyebrows. It shimmered faintly as if alive. "This is the sign of broken truth," the spirit announced. "As long as this mark remains, your tongue will burn when you try to speak lies about another soul. Your throat will tighten when you attempt to spread rumors or gossip. If you push past the warning and still choose to harm, the mark will darken, and your voice will vanish for a season." Lami sobbed, touching her forehead gently. "Please, it hurts," she whispered. The spirit's tone softened, but did not grow gentle. "Pain is a teacher that does not forget," it replied. "Let it remind you of the weight of careless words." The spirit then turned to the gathered villagers, its light sweeping across their faces like a searching lamp. "You," it said, voice rolling like distant thunder, "have fed this fire." Heads bowed. You listened to whispers and swallowed them without question. You allowed a rumor to grow legs and walk through every home, and you never once stopped to ask, "Is this true?" You closed your doors against an innocent girl. You refused to sit beside her. You treated her like a stain, though you had no proof. The villagers shivered under the spirit's gaze. A tall man in the front, one who had once praised Zira's nets the loudest, spoke in a quiet voice. Sacred One, we were foolish. We judged too quickly. We feared what we did not understand. The spirit nodded slowly. Fear without wisdom becomes cruelty. From today, each of you will carry a task as well. You will correct the harm you helped to spread, with your own mouths, in your own homes. The elders exchanged serious looks, knowing this was a rebuke they would feel for a long time. The spirit pointed once more at Lami. You will begin, it said firmly. You will go from house to house, from compound to compound. At every doorway where Zira's name was mentioned with suspicion, you will knock. You will kneel. You will say, I lied. I was jealous. Zira is innocent. I harmed her without cause. Lami squeezed her eyes shut, as if the words themselves were stones she had to swallow. I will do it, she whispered hoarsely. Not once, the spirit continued, but until every person in this village has heard the truth from your lips. You will not attend any gatherings, festivals, dances, or meetings of celebration for 1 full year. You will walk past laughter and music, and you will remember that joy left your friend's home because of your actions. Lami's shoulders shook. A full year, she choked. Grandmother Irina's voice drifted in gently. A wound that deep does not close in a day, child. Lami turned to look at Zira, her eyes flooded with shame. I do not know if you can ever forgive me, she murmured. I do not deserve it. Zira stepped closer, her heart beating in her ears. Everyone watched her, holding their breath. She studied Lami's face, the same girl she had once shared roasted yam with, the same girl who had danced beside her during the last festival, the same girl who had chosen envy over friendship. Zira's chest ached with old memories and fresh pain. Lami, she said softly, you broke something inside me. You turned the village against me, and there were nights I wished I could disappear. Tears shimmered in her eyes. But I also remember when you held my hand the day my little brother was sick. I remember when we chased fireflies together, and you laughed so hard you fell into the cassava heap. A small, sad smile touched her lips. Those good memories are also real. I will not throw them away. I cannot pretend nothing happened. It will take time for my heart to heal. But I choose not to hate you. Lami stared at her, stunned. You do not hate me? She whispered, voice breaking. Zira shook her head slowly. No, I am tired of drowning in pain. I want to breathe again. The spirit's glow softened, becoming warm like evening sunlight. This is the strength of a clean heart, it said, its voice now gentle. Zira, child of patience, your name will be remembered in this land, not only for your skill with nets, but for your courage in choosing mercy. The villagers felt a strange warmth move through the square, as if a heavy burden was being lifted from their shoulders. Zira's mother covered her face with her hands and began to cry, not tears of sorrow this time, but of deep relief. Her father stood tall, his eyes shining with pride as he gazed at his daughter. You are truly my child, he murmured. You carry the kindness of your mother and the strength of my father before me. The elders bowed before the spirit. What shall we do for Zira? One of them asked. How do we restore what was taken from her? The spirit's light turned toward the ancestral shrine standing quietly at the edge of the square, its entrance still undecorated. Her honor will be restored in the eyes of all, it replied. But first, you must repair your hearts. The spirit lifted its luminous hand once more, and for a moment, everything went still. Then, with a rush of warmth, the golden light spread out across the village like a soft wave, touching every rooftop, every doorway, every field. People felt old grudges loosen, suspicions fade, and unnecessary anger dissolve like salt in water. Children stopped crying. Even the birds that had been silent returned to the branches and began to sing. The spirit spoke. Let this day be remembered as the day the tongues were tested. Let it be taught to your children that words are not feathers. Once thrown, they do not disappear into the sky. They land somewhere. They cut somewhere. They either heal or they wound. Grandmother Irina smiled faintly, leaning on her staff. We will remember, she promised. I will tell this story until my last breath. The spirit nodded, satisfied. Its light began to grow thinner around the edges, as though it were preparing to leave. Zira suddenly felt a pang of fear. Will you go, Holy One? She asked softly. Yes, the spirit replied. But my eyes remain in the trees, in the river, in the wind. Whenever truth is twisted, and the innocent cry out, I will hear. Before fading completely, the spirit stretched its hand toward Zira. A small thread of golden light shot forward and wrapped itself around her wrist, forming a delicate, glowing bracelet. Her eyes widened as she stared at it. It felt warm but weightless. "What is this?" she asked. The spirit's voice sounded softer now, like a whisper. "This is the band of clear sight," it said. "As long as you wear it, your heart will feel when words around you are not honest. You will sense when someone speaks with a hidden knife behind their tongue. Use this gift wisely. Do not become proud because of it. Let it be a tool for protection, not a weapon for judgment." Zira nodded slowly, still amazed. "I will be careful," she promised. Lami watched the glowing band with a mixture of awe and regret. The spirit's gaze passed over her one last time. "Your lesson is only beginning," it reminded her. "Do not waste your pain." Lami pressed her hand against the mark on her forehead, feeling it pulse slightly beneath her skin. She swallowed, her voice low. "I won't," she said. "I don't ever want to be this person again." With that, the spirit bowed its bright head to the elders, then to Grandmother Irina, and finally to Zira's family. "Walk in truth," it said simply. In the next heartbeat, the golden light broke apart like scattered dust and vanished into the air. The square felt strangely empty without it, though the warmth it had left behind remained. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then, slowly, the elders straightened their backs. One of them, Elder Kanu, stepped forward and raised his staff. "People of Udine," he called out, "you have seen with your own eyes what jealousy and rumor can do. You have also seen the mercy of the ancestors and the strength of a gentle heart. From this day, let it be known that Zira's name is clean. Whoever repeats the lie after this will answer not just to us, but to the spirits." A murmur of agreement moved through the crowd. One by one, villagers turned toward Zira. Some lowered their heads, ashamed. Others stepped forward to speak. "Zira, forgive us," one woman said. "We turned our backs on you too quickly." A boy she had grown up with added, "I should have defended you." "I am sorry." Zira listened to their apologies with a quiet face, the glowing band still resting gently against her wrist. Her heart was a mix of emotions, relief, sadness, gratitude, and something like cautious hope. She nodded slowly. "I hear you," she said. "I cannot forget what happened overnight, but I am willing to walk forward with all of you, if we walk with more care." Her words settled over the crowd like a soft blanket. The elders then turned to Zira's father. "Your family will not be banned from the Harvest Festival," Elder Kanu declared. "In fact, we ask that Zira lead the decorations of the ancestral shrine as originally chosen. It is the least we can do to show our respect." Zira's father's eyes shone with emotion. He placed a hand on his daughter's shoulder. "What do you say, child?" Zira looked at the shrine, then at the villagers, then at Lami, who still stood apart, marked and shaken. "I will decorate it," she said quietly. "Not just for myself, but so that our village remembers this day as a turning point." Somewhere inside her, a new strength was growing, one shaped not just by pain but by choice. The next morning, the village of Udine woke with a quiet stillness, as if everyone feared breaking the fragile peace that had arrived the day before. The sun rose slowly, spilling pale gold over the rooftops, and the birds seemed to sing more gently than usual. Zira stood outside her home with a deep breath, staring at the empty path that led to the ancestral shrine. Her hands shook slightly, not from fear anymore, but from the heavy responsibility she carried. She touched the glowing band around her wrist, and it pulsed softly like a heartbeat. Her mother came to her side, placing a warm hand on her back. "Your shoulders are stronger than you think," she whispered. Zira nodded and gathered the bundles of dyed cloth, woven strings, and carefully carved wooden ornaments she had prepared before the storm of rumors had broken over her life. As she walked toward the shrine, villagers stepped aside, not avoiding her this time, but honoring her path. Some bowed their heads respectfully. Others whispered blessings under their breath. Zira felt their eyes on her, but for the first time in weeks, she did not feel small. She walked with steady steps, her feet stirring the dust softly, like a drumbeat calling something new into the world. When she reached the shrine, she paused for a long moment. The structure stood tall and ancient, its clay walls painted with the symbols of the ancestors, its doorway wrapped in palm fronds. It looked like a silent witness waiting for truth to be rebuilt upon its threshold. Zira raised her hand and placed her palm on the entrance stone, feeling a faint warmth spread through her fingertips, as if the ancestors themselves were greeting her. Then she set to work, stretching wide sheets of dyed cloth across the wooden frame, weaving patterns that flowed like river water. Spirals of unity, lines of endurance, shapes symbolizing peace. The villagers watched quietly from a respectful distance. Some whispered to one another about the beauty of her work. Others simply stared in awe. As she tied the final knot securing the top of the shrine covering, the wind suddenly swept through the square, lifting the cloth slightly and making it dance like a bird spreading its wings. The glowing band around her wrist flashed briefly, and Zira heard a soft whisper inside her heart, not with her ears, but somewhere deeper. Truth builds what lies try to break. She steadied herself, swallowing emotion. While Zira worked at the shrine, Lami walked through the village with her shoulders heavy, carrying the weight of her punishment like a stone strapped to her chest. The mark on her forehead burned each time she thought of avoiding her task or pretending the truth had already been spoken enough. She walked to the first household, the old widow Maka's home, and knocked on the wooden frame with trembling fingers. When Maku opened the door, she stared at Lami with sad eyes but said nothing. Lami dropped to her knees immediately, pressing her forehead to the dirt. "I lied," she said, voice breaking. "My jealousy poisoned me. I wronged Zira, and I wronged you by allowing you to believe the worst about her. I ask for forgiveness." Maka watched her for a painful moment before placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "The wound is deep, child," she whispered, "but confession is the first thread in the cloth of healing." Lami nodded silently and moved on to the next home. By the 5th house, her voice shook so much she could barely speak. By the 10th, she could barely stand. The sun burned hot overhead, and her legs trembled with exhaustion. But she kept walking. She had chosen this path, and she would not turn from it again. Days passed. Word spread across Udine about the transformation beginning in both girls. Zira, who once wept under the weight of shame, now walked with quiet strength, and the villagers began to admire her for more than her skill. Mothers pointed her out to their daughters, saying, "This is how one carries dignity in the face of hardship." The young men, ashamed of their earlier cowardice, offered to help gather materials for the final shrine decorations, though Zira politely refused, choosing to complete what she started with her own hands. Meanwhile, Lami continued door-to-door confessions daily, her voice gaining steadiness not from pride, but from humility. One evening, as she passed the riverbank, she stopped and stared at her reflection in the water. The mark on her forehead glowed faintly, reminding her of her failure, and yet she felt something shifting inside herself. "This pain is shaping me," she whispered. She pressed her hand to her heart. "Maybe I will become someone I can respect again." The river wind carried her words away like scattered seeds. When the harvest festival finally arrived, villagers filled the square wearing bright colors and carrying baskets of food. Music rose into the air, drums pounding like joyful thunder. Children ran across the dusty ground with painted faces and flower crowns, and the smell of roasted maize drifted through the air. Zira stood near the completed shrine, adjusting the final decorations. When she stepped back, the villagers gasped. The shrine glowed beautifully beneath the sun, its cloth rippling like water, its patterns shining with meaning. Elder Kanu lifted his voice. "Let every heart in Udine look upon this shrine and remember what truth costs and what forgiveness restores." The crowd cheered, clapping and singing. But Zira was watching something else. Lami, standing alone at the edge of the festival, outside the circle of celebration. Lami kept her head bowed, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Though she had confessed to every home, she knew her year of silence had just begun. She turned to leave quietly, not wanting to interrupt the joyful air. But before she could walk away, Zira stepped off the shrine platform and approached her. The crowd fell silent instantly. Every eye focused on the two girls, once sisters in friendship, torn apart by envy, now standing in the space between past and possibility. Lami's knees trembled. She whispered, "I should not be here." Zira shook her head gently. "You should," she said. "Not to celebrate, but to witness. To see what truth can build when lies are burned away." Lami's eyes filled with tears. "I do not deserve your kindness," she whispered bitterly. Zira looked at her for a long time. "Kindness is not something we give because someone earned it. It is something we give because we choose better than what was given to us." The glowing band around Zira's wrist flickered softly, as though agreeing. Elder Kanu approached them both and placed his staff gently between them like a symbol of unity. This village has learned much, he said. But learning does not end here. Udine must walk forward differently than before. He turned to the villagers. Let us promise today, never again will we let rumor judge before we seek truth. Never again will we sharpen our tongues before we sharpen our understanding. The villagers bowed their heads. One by one, they placed stones at the base of the Ubat tree. Stones that represented broken arrogance, discarded pride, and buried cruelty. Let these stones remind us, Elder Kanu declared, that the foundation of peace is built, stone by stone, through humility. Something shifted in the air then, a presence soft and gentle, like the brushing wings of unseen doves. The wind moved through the shrine cloth, making it flutter like a living heartbeat. Zira closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of the ancestors settle around her. She heard a whisper deep inside her spirit, the same voice as before. Your path is not the path of bitterness. You were shaped for brighter things. She exhaled slowly, letting days of lingering pain slip from her shoulders. When she opened her eyes, she saw her father standing nearby, pride shining like sunlight in his gaze. You have become a light, he said quietly. She smiled, and for the first time since the rumors began, her smile reached her eyes. Lami stepped back slightly, placing a hand over the mark on her forehead. Though she still felt pain, she also felt something new, space to grow. She bowed deeply to Zira. Thank you for not destroying me, she whispered. Zira touched her arm lightly, not as a friend yet, but as someone offering a chance. You will walk a long road, she replied softly. But every road begins with one step. Take it. Lami nodded and wiped her tears. For the first time in weeks, she lifted her head without shame. She turned and walked away from the festival, not because she was chased out, but because she chose to begin her journey properly. Quietly, humbly, honestly. As the celebration continued, the villagers danced, their feet kicking up dust and laughter echoing through the air. Zira joined them only briefly, but her heart was elsewhere. She walked to the riverbank alone and sat at the water's edge, dipping her fingers into the cool current. The glowing band around her wrist shimmered, reflecting golden ripples against her skin. She whispered into the wind, "Ancestors, guide me. I want to use this gift wisely." The wind answered gently through the rustle of leaves, sounding like a blessing. She thought about the future, the work she would do, the wisdom she would carry, the voice she now possessed not just to speak but to heal. The river mirrored her reflection. Not the broken girl who once cried in her mother's lap, but someone rebuilt from fire. As twilight came, Grandmother Arena approached her, leaning on her staff. She sat beside Zira without saying a word for a long time. Finally, she spoke softly. The world will always carry shadows, child, but the heart must choose where to stand, in the shadow or in the light. Zira nodded. I understand, she said. I used to fear losing what I loved. Now I fear losing myself if I stop choosing what is right. Grandmother Arena smiled, her old eyes shining. You have learned a lesson that some never learn, even after many seasons of life. Hold it close. It will guide you farther than skill or beauty ever could. Zira placed her hand over her heart. I will, she promised. I will honor what has been given to me. The night deepened, and stars appeared like diamonds scattered across black velvet. Lanterns glowed softly along the village paths, and the drums slowed to a steady heartbeat rhythm. Zira rose and walked to the center of the square where a large fire burned brightly, surrounded by villagers. Elder Kanu raised his staff once more. Let the festival of renewal begin, he declared. The villagers cheered, but Zira simply stood still, letting the fire warm her face. She looked around and saw the faces of her people, no longer twisted by suspicion, but softened by humility. She felt a peace so deep it settled into her bones. She bowed her head and whispered, "Thank you," though she did not specify to whom. The spirits, the ancestors, her parents, herself, all were deserving. As the fire crackled, Zira felt the presence of the spirit once more. Not in blinding light this time, but as a soft warmth brushing her cheek like the touch of a parent saying goodbye. A whisper drifted through the air, barely heard. Walk boldly. Your story is only beginning. She closed her eyes, breathing deeply, and let silence settle around her. She thought of everything that had happened, the betrayal, the pain, the shame, the courage, and the return of truth. She knew she would never be the same girl again. Something new lived inside her now, a strength woven from mercy, a resilience shaped by fire. She straightened her shoulders and lifted her chin. The future no longer frightened her. It called to her. Back at the edge of the square, Lami watched the festival from a distance, tears shining but not falling. She placed her hand over her heart and spoke quietly to herself. "One day," she whispered, "I will earn my place among them again. I will rebuild what I crushed." For the first time, she believed those words. She walked away into the night, not as someone cast out, but as someone beginning again. And though the mark on her forehead still burned, it no longer felt like punishment. It felt like a lantern guiding her steps. Somewhere deep inside, hope flickered softly. The fire blazed brighter, painting the night sky with flickering gold. Zira stepped back, watching the faces of her people, faces filled with joy, humility, and renewed unity. She placed her hand over the glowing band on her wrist and smiled thoughtfully. "The truth," she whispered, "always finds its way home." And under the watching stars, beneath the ancient branches of the ube tree, the village of Udine breathed as one again, healed, humbled, and whole. The drums beat softly like a heartbeat of peace, and the ancestors rested, knowing that justice and mercy had walked hand in hand. The night closed gently around them, and the story settled into the earth, a reminder carved forever into the heart of the village. Words can destroy, but they can also rebuild, and forgiveness, when chosen with courage, is stronger than the loudest rumor.